Night and day they patrol the globe to keep the peace, to impose law where there is none, to create order where there is chaos. This is the Army of the United Nations, mandated to act as the world's policeman.
Zambe bolingo, zambe nanguya, bikera mubiso, dokumisa yawe. Katine sengo, katina mpasi, tobelela yawe, abongina nkembo. Hey Yahweh, kumamba. Hey Yahweh, kumama. Hey Yahweh, kumama. Hey Yahweh, kumama.
It is one of the world's largest and certainly one of the best equipped armies in the world. And it's certainly one of the most international armies in the world. These are the UN Peacekeepers, the Blueberries. But no other army in the world has suffered quite the same hostility. Accusations of incompetence, impotence, corruption, abuse. Right or wrong? Well, I'm here to find out in their latest battleground, the Congo. This is the most dangerous and challenging assignment in their 50 years history. And one that might finally undermine their credibility. In the absence of any meaningful government in this vast country, they represent its only law enforcer. They must impose their will here to end the fighting and stop the slaughter. If they cannot, if they will not, then this conflict will erupt into a human catastrophe on a massive scale, even by Africa's standards. And they will carry the blame. They have been here before. After a century of abuse by the Belgian colonials, in 1960 the Congo gained its independence. 6 years later, it was renamed Zaire and ruled by the dictator Mobutu Sese Seko. And he continued the cycle of mayhem that this country has suffered ever since. The Blueberries intervened, but despite their numbers, they could do nothing to stop the slaughter. So finally they gave up and went home. And this country has suffered ever since. The UN currently has over 100,000 Blueberries on missions worldwide, in 16 locations, throughout 5 continents, from Haiti to East Timor. 120 countries contribute troops on request at a cost to the UN of over $7 billion. Pakistan has 10,000 of its soldiers serving under the blue flag, earning it over $200 million a year. For many poorer countries, putting their men into Blueberries is a vital source of income. Costing over $1 billion, the Congo is the most expensive UN mission so far. With such huge financial incentives, this often means it doesn't get the right number of trained troops. But even well-trained men like the Dutch sent to Srebrenica in Bosnia haven't the mandate to do what is needed.
Too many places in the world, they send their worst regiments to earn international currency for their home country because the UN pays very well. Well, okay, if you get that, that's what you're going to get the result.
In the Congo, little has changed. Mobutu died in 1997, but it took another 9 years before Zaire was renamed the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the first free elections were held. The UN made a substantial contribution to see it through. But once elected, the new government of President Joseph Kabila proved no better than the previous regime. It was dogged by corruption, political murders, and anarchy throughout the country. The slaughter of the innocents began anew. Now the blueberries have returned to try again what they failed to do 50 years ago. And here they go under the acronym Monuc.
We came here to support the governmental forces, but of course right now we are facing a partner which is in big difficulties in command and control. So we are left alone to do things which normally the state army should do. So in that respect, of course, we are not enough.
Our mandate is to support the government. So number one, government is not completely happy with us because they think that the support is not total. Right. They're expecting us to do more. Number two, those that we need to protect, this means the civilian, they think that because every one of them, of the IDPs, are facing a tough situation, so they think that Monuc is not doing completely the job, number two. Number three, the different, let's say, armed groups, foreign armed groups, and internal armed groups as well, Monuc is for them an obstacle to complete the job. So nobody is happy.
The problem with Congo is that the reality on the ground is incredibly complex. And I think that's one of the reasons why the UN in Congo has not succeeded in bringing a final end to this conflict.
But what is the final end when month on month, year on year, it gets worse? And the blueberries find themselves more entrenched in a conflict that gets ever more complex. This is one of the men who made it so. Laurent Nkunda has made this eastern part of the Congo Kivu province a war zone. He was the leader of a Congolese rebel army supported by the Rwandan government to hunt down those Hutus who were responsible for the genocide of the Rwandan Tutsis in 1994. He threatened to enter Goma, the provincial capital, and fight the blueberries if he had to. He has since been arrested, but his rebel army remain a very real threat, even without him, and the UN men know it. They know, too, that they cannot depend on what passes as a Congolese army. They don't inspire confidence. They are a shambolic, rag-tag collection of armed, semi-uniformed men who live with their families and wander as they will. There is no discipline, no transparent local command structure. The government pays them nothing, so they raid and they steal to feed themselves. They are a menace to the UN and civilians alike. There is only one safe way to traverse this country, and that is by air, which is why its airfields are so closely guarded, especially here in Goma. The UN depends entirely on this airstrip for resupplies and the movement of its troops. Their helicopters are built for combat, but more often serve here as the workhorses. If this strip was damaged by sabotage, the entire UN operation would close. Which is why the blueberries are employed not to protect civilians, but to protect themselves.
People are very frustrated. They also think that Monuc is the only force in the region to protect them. So I think it's some reaction of desperate behavior, and that's why they want to have more from us.
Monuc has first of all a capacity problem. They are an armed force, not a police force. So a camp, for instance, needs to be policed. Monuc has made it very clear at several points that they consider their main objective at this stage to defend the city of Goma and not, a particular camp. So Monuc is trying, but clearly is having difficulties in coping.
There are some 17,000 blueberries stationed across eastern Congo. They have the military hardware, armored personnel carriers, tanks, heavy machine guns, mortars. Another 3,000 troops are expected soon. But for what? The fighting and the killing goes on, yet this large, expensive armored force can do little to stop it. They cannot force the people to agree a peace, neither can they impose a peace by force. Why? Well, because under their rules of engagement, the UN forbids it.